Good shot, kid. I think you got him. Good shot, kid. I think you got him.
Hello there, and welcome back to some more Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Today we'll continue on Let's Play. This is episode 48. In today's episode, we are beginning our look at the Import-Export side mission, a returning one from GTA 3 and Vice City, where we must deliver cars for a cash reward. In this game, there's 30 cars to deliver total over 3 lists, and this mission is unlocked after completing the Customs Fast Track mission for the Wang Cars asset. Unlike in previous games, however, this game does have a bit of a trick up its sleeve. To make things a bit easier, this game actually creates a spawn point for every single car on the list when it's required by the game. So that does actually mean hunting for these cars is a lot easier. There's no more waiting around for one to randomly appear in traffic. And I'll be showing either the best spawn points, or I'll be showing the best spawn point that the game has, whether it's one created by the side mission or not. Our first car to get is the Admiral, which looks like a 1980s Mercedes. That can be best found at the Paper Cuts in Los Santos Conference, a shop we don't usually visit, but either way it is just down the side of it. I will say one thing about the spawn points that the game creates in order for these cars to be exported. There is a decent chance the cars will be locked. If they are locked, simply circle around the block and wait for a new one to be created. Alternatively, you can use a tow truck in order to tow them to a garage, and then that'll unlock the cars from there, but usually it's just better to drive around the block. Unless you're really unlucky, you won't find these cars locked more than a few times. Also, another thing, technically the game tells you to use the crane in order to export these vehicles. However, you can just drive up the staircase of the boat, and I find that makes things a hell of a lot easier. So that's what we're going to be doing throughout this, as long as we can do that with some of these vehicles. Some of them are rather large, and it makes it rather difficult to do so. Also, you earn a lot of money for delivering these cars. The Admiral, in fact, is worth $35,000. Each car is worth a unique amount of money. Most on this first list are $35,000. Next up, we need to find the Buffalo, which looks like a 1990s, early 90s Chevrolet Camaro with some strange headlights on it. It's the car Catalina uses, but the best place to get it is the Zuma petrol station here in Easter Base, and another spawn point created by the game. It is a little bit weird to get this one to spawn. Quite a lot of the times it won't, as long as only one car spawns there, because 2 cars are supposed to spawn there sort of perpendicular in a line, and this will spawn right at the back of the gas station. So long as only one of those vehicles spawns, this one will spawn too. It doesn't spawn all 3 of them at the same time, if that makes sense to you. Anyways, once again, we are delivering the Buffalo for $35,000, driving up the boat once again. Unfortunately, you get that red Corona to tell you where to put it. Sometimes it doesn't appear. If it doesn't, then just sort of around about the middle of the boat. As long as you stop, the game will kick you out once you are in the correct area. Next up, we need the camper, which looks like a Volkswagen Samba bus. This is at a storage lot in Hashbury. Actually, really convenient place in order to get this just down the road from the Hashbury safe house. Yeah, there's the actual spawn point created by the game is in Los Santos, I believe, for this one. But it's far easier to get it here. Of course, it can be driving around in traffic. You may find these vehicles in traffic. However, I'm showing the spawn points because I feel that's what's more useful to you, instead of just saying, oh well, if you keep driving around this area, eventually one will show up. I feel it's a lot more useful to you to show you exactly where these vehicles should spawn, or will spawn. In fact, you will find these vehicles here, and if you don't, then just drive around the block and then they will be there. So I feel that's the best way to do it. I know in Vice City a lot of those we found in traffic, and in GTA 3 actually we did it that way, but this seems like the most useful to you now. $26,000 for the camper, not quite worth as much as the Admiral and the Buffalo, but we didn't have to go quite as far for it. Next car we need is the Feltzer, which looks like an 80s Mercedes-Benz SL. This can be found at the rest stop in Baco Beyond. Alternatively, you can use the valet mission in San Fierro in order to spawn these, as I detailed when we did the valet mission. It's a car that can appear very, very often in that side mission, so that's probably your best bet to do it. It's the easiest way instead of driving all the way out to Baco Beyond. But again, this is the way I did it, so there you go. The Feltzer is front wheel drive, so it can actually get up the boat quite easily. And his car actually plays a pivotal role later in the game, but of course, from this point we haven't really seen all that much of the Feltzer, which is fine because it's a relatively average vehicle by all regards, and is worth a very average $35,000. Next up, our most expensive vehicle on the list, and also the hardest to find unlocked, is the Infernus. It's based off an early 90s Acura NSX, and it can be found here at this house in Paradiso on the driveway. 9 times out of 10, this thing will be locked. The best bet I found for this is to sort of log it in the game's memory and then wait for Infernuses to spawn around it, because they do spawn in this area as well. And I figured that's the best way to do it, but definitely make sure to get these cars repaired at the pay and spray as well before you bring them here if you have any damage, because otherwise you will get a reduction to how much you earn. In this case, I ended up damaging the vehicle very stupidly by reversing a little bit too fast. You can see the scraping there. I didn't actually cause any visual damage to the vehicle, however, it did affect my payout. With this being the most expensive car, that was a very, very hard pill to swallow, as I only got about $93,000 for this, as opposed to the full $95,000, which is what this vehicle's worth, which is an awful lot of money in this game. Next up, we need the Patriot, which looks like an American Army spec Humvee that can be found at the Easter Bay chemical plant. This one, very easy one to get, basically just down the road from the docks actually, so a very nice one to get. The alarm will go off. The alarm will go off on all these vehicles pretty much, and if it does end up going off, then just simply wait for it to deactivate. You can get out the car and you won't get a wanted level. As long as no police officer sees you driving it, you won't get a wanted level. If they see you driving a car with an alarm, you'll get a 1-star wanted level. Not the end of the world, but of course we are trying not to damage these cars as much as possible in order to seek the maximum amount of profit out of them. So that would be my recommendation, to try and avoid any form of police attention when it comes to this one. Anyways, the Patriot, worth $40,000 again. Another pretty good payday. That is joint for... Oh, sorry. The Infernus is the most expensive car on this list, and then there's 2 vehicles worth $40,000. Next up, we need the Remington, which looks like a 1970s customized Cadillac, I guess. Sort of a lowrider, can be found here at Unity Station, a location we should all be very aware of if we've played any length of time of San Andreas. This car can also be found driving around in the countryside. However, it is a relatively uncommon spawn, so don't hold out too much hope for that one. Anyways, again, the Remington, it's a little bit low. I try to get them without hydraulics, because hydraulics does make them lower, which could be an issue when trying to get up the boat. But then again, I guess you can make them hop up on the hydraulics and give yourself more ground clearance. Either way, $30,000 for importing the Remington, and we move on to our next vehicle, and in fact our cheapest vehicle of today, which is the Sanchez, which looks like an old dirt bike, not particularly sure which brand. Either way, a very easy vehicle to find. This can once again be found in Hashbury, this time down an alleyway just sort of near the suburban clothing shop and a tattoo parlour. A very easy one to find, and a very fun one to drive. The Sanchez, of course, a vehicle we should all be very used to by now. Useful for unique stunt jumps when you are out in the sort of less hospitable areas of this game. But of course, a cheap vehicle to get rid of because they're highly disposable in game. $10,000 for this one. I apparently damaged it slightly, but again, not a massive loss, only $41. Next up, one of the harder ones to find, the Sentinel. It can be found here at the Vinewood Film Studio, and it looks like a 90s BMW 5 Series. It can be found parked here. One you probably don't know about in terms of spawn points. So there's usually people just say find them driving around San Fierro, which I mean you can do, but of course when you're looking for something, it never quite shows up. So Vinewood Film Studio is the spawn point the game creates. You've probably never even been in the film studio, unfortunately. A very underutilized location when it comes to this game, which is a bit of a shame. The Sentinel, actually one of my favourite vehicles in this game. It's a very, very good all-round vehicle, 4 doors, decently tough, and good enough performance. I also think it looks quite cool, but either way, of course, we need to export it, so it's time to say goodbye to our Sentinel, and it's worth a very average $35,000, so perhaps unsurprising in that regard. Also, be careful to replenish your health if you're going to jump off the boat like I do, because eventually you will die. You actually take a fair amount of damage from that. And finally today, the Stretch, which can be found behind the Wang's car showroom. It of course is a Stretch limo variant of a Lincoln Town Car. Yeah, Wang Car's showroom, probably the easiest one to find out of all the vehicles on this list. The easiest one in terms of location from the docks, because you can literally drive this thing straight down the railway line and end up at the docks. Getting this one up the staircase you might think is a bit more of an issue, but it's actually not too bad as long as you carry an optimal amount of speed and just sort of watch yourself when coming out of this little opening here. Of course, all that effort to get the vehicle up will be rewarded, as the Stretch is worth $40,000 again. Sort of tied with the Patriot for the second most expensive vehicle we'll be retrieving today. And in fact, that's all 10 vehicles. You get a bonus $50,000 rewarded for all the cars delivered. And of course, that unlocks the list number 2. We'll come back to the list 2 sort of later on in the game, once we have a better understanding of the other city of this game, as some of those cars are inside Las Venturas. However, in case you are curious, you can walk up to the board and import your own vehicles. Each day has a different set of vehicles that could be imported, and all the cars you deliver can be re-imported. So you can see there Saturday, Admiral and the Remington, which we just got. That one has the Camper and the Sentinel. Tuesday has the Jester, the Feltzer and the Stretch. And then Wednesday, so on and so forth. You can only import those cars on those days, and to be honest with you, it's not really worth it because they cost an awful lot of money. Anyways, that is it. Oh, sorry, I should also mention quickly that for delivering 5 cars on the first list, you unlock the Monster to be an importable vehicle, and then completing the full list unlocks the Windsor, which looks like a Jaguar E-Type, and actually a pretty good vehicle, especially if you like going sliding. But either way, that is it for Import-Export List 1. Do hope you've enjoyed. Next time we are going to be wrapping up our look at San Fierro by taking a look at all the safe house locations in the city, so join us for that. Until then, a farewell.
Uptown, downtown, speeding all around. The naked 47 got the power and it's bound to move any mother that gets in my way. Just another power machine on the freeway. Riding with me, here's my MC homeboy. Knowing the rules ain't part of his program. Finding the right way around this map might be pretty hard, cause he's fucked on crack. G, Grand Theft Auto.